You are tuned in to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. Join us now on another exciting metaphysical journey. Relax, tune in, drop out, and take a seat by the fire as we explore new realms and possibilities. This is Magenta Pixie. You can find me at magentapixie.weebly.com. But now, here is Zany Mystic and guest. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. Today, my guest is Dr. Stephen Greer. Dr. Greer is the founder and director of the Disclosure Project. In addition to heading the Disclosure Project, he has also been supervising a worldwide search for alternative energy sources, such as zero-point devices, with the plan to identify and develop systems which will eliminate the need for fossil fuels. Dr. Greer released his third book in 2006, Hidden Truth, Forbidden Knowledge, in which he relates his own personal experiences with extraterrestrials and the unfolding of cosmic awareness since his childhood. At an early age, he had a UFO sighting, and at 17, he experienced an amazing near-death experience and went on to unravel the secret cabal that is currently running most of the projects on the world, including the illegal transnational energy and UFO-related projects. On May 9th, 2001, as director of the Disclosure Project, Dr. Greer presided over the Disclosure Project press conference from the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Over 20 military, government, intelligence, and corporate witnesses presented compelling testimony regarding the existence of extraterrestrial life forms visiting the planet and the reverse engineering of the energy and propulsion systems of these craft. So let's explore what's transpired since the press conference and where Disclosure stands today by welcoming Dr. Greer to the show now. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good. I'm glad to have you. I've been following your work for a long time. I read your book about 5 years ago, and I'll have to tell you it was one of the most shocking and eye-opening books that I've read to date. And I highly recommend it to everybody because it's really vital information to find out about.
Well, thank you.
You're doing a lot of really incredible work on the planet and on many levels. So I know that a lot of people are going to want to know, first of all, where to have an update on the Disclosure Project, where it's progressed and where it might be today.
Well, we're really focused in three major areas. The first is, and the original project is the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, CSETI, and CSETI.org is the website for that. And that is about training people using Vedic knowledge of higher states of consciousness and remote viewing to establish contact, interplanetary peaceful contact with these civilizations which we know are visiting the Earth. We think this is very important because the governments of the world have dropped the ball on that. The only response that we've shown these interstellar civilizations is military, and that's an enormous mistake that started in the World War II period. So that's one project. Now, from that, and I have to say, to give you a really quick thumbnail sketch of this, by 1993, we had succeeded in doing that. And if people, this last book that came out in the past year called Contact, Kent Down the Transformation, has a DVD that comes with it. And, excuse me, that is at disclosureproject.org. You can get these books. That one shows our team making direct contact with these interstellar civilizations, vector them into sight, having craft actually materialize near us, and more recently, in the past year, an extraterrestrial ambassador that materialized about 3 feet from our circle, which we photographed.
Wow.
Now, what this means is, and what this said to me beginning in 91 and 92 and 93, was that these civilizations are eager to have peaceful contact if people understand the transdimensional aspects of what that implies. Because if you're going faster than the speed of light, you're going to have to cross into these other dimensions where consciousness and thought, what used to be relegated to the realm of metaphysics and the mystic, is actually the science of these civilizations. Mm-hmm. So luckily, before I became a trauma doctor, emergency doctor, I was a student of the Vedas and Sanskrit and meditation, and had a lot of these experiences, so I could understand the context of the conscious living universe and then put that into a paradigm for making contact. But once these contact events started happening, for example, we were in Florida in 1992, and we had 4 extraterrestrial vehicles appear within a few hundred feet of us, and this was filmed by about 5 different video cameras and photographed. It was on the front page of the Pensacola paper the next day. This DVD that is with this new book, Contact, Countdown to Transformation, shows that footage. Now, what's interesting is that I was then approached by the head of Army Intelligence and some other people associated with the intelligence community who basically said, what the hell are you doing? Because they knew that I was stepping outside their control boundaries, because I discovered, as this one man said, I discovered the Rosetta Stone of interstellar communication, which is using thought, consciousness, coherent thought. There's a whole program that we've developed around that. It's actually very scientific, but it has a great deal to do with consciousness. So he was actually sort of threatening me, and I basically said, bug off, you guys are petro-Nazis, and get out of my face. And, so I'm an emergency doctor, so I don't intimidate that easily, believe me. And so I'm going, well, look, but also what came to light was that there were people who approached me from the Clinton administration who said, look, we think it is time for this information to come out, but the president and the CIA director don't have access. Now, this was shocking to me, and I thought initially it was a prevarication to try to just pick my brain. But anyway, I was invited, my wife and I were invited to come up to Washington that first year that Clinton was president and meet with the CIA director, R. James Woolsey, for about 3 hours. And Mr. Woolsey, genuinely being the CIA director, the average person out there would think, oh, well, they know about anything going on that's secret. He totally had been blocked access to these projects. And this really was something that I was very disturbed to learn. It was true. The President of the United States was also denied control and access over these projects. So there's this sort of parallel secret government that we uncovered that operates quite outside of the chain of command of the Constitution. So that was the birth of the Disclosure Project. I'm trying to give you a little bit of a history here. And so between the early 90s and 2001, I began to go around and identify people who had been in these projects, worked on the extraterrestrial devices that we had shot down. Roswell, by the way, was a shooting down using an electromagnetic weapon system. It wasn't a crash in the normal sense. And people who had personal documents or gun camera footage, anything that was dispositive. We put all that together, and that was then launched in 2001. Now, that press conference was actually seen by about 1 billion people worldwide. Wow. But the big media like CNN and other entities that began to cover it were then contacted by people in the intelligence community and told, don't pursue this and don't cover it anymore. So then we began to do other things to get the information out through the Internet and through other governments. For example, having been working a lot with people in the French government, we got the French government to release over 100,000 pages of their secret documents from their space agency, Japan. And recently, the New Zealand government has released documents. The Mexican government has. The Danish government has. Even the United Kingdom has begun to release a few of their documents, although they're still very much hand in glove with America. Right. And so what that then led to was that I began to meet people who had actually worked on the energy and propulsion systems that are behind these mysterious objects that people have seen. And everyone knows they're not normal aerodynamic aircraft. They're not using jets and rockets and things of this sort. So they're using a very advanced transdimensional physics, hyperdimensional physics. And we have people now on our team who've actually worked on those physics. And so as a consequence of that, we started the Orion Project.org, which is an energy research entity. It's a not-for-profit that we put together a couple years ago to educate people on that, because we're convinced that the heart of the secrecy, although there's a lot of reasons for the secrecy, inertia for one, bureaucratic inertia, the scandal of all this information coming out. But also, there are some religious entities that don't want this information out. obviously, if you think the world is 6,000 years old and we rode dinosaurs, well, I mean, there's a museum in Kentucky that shows this, where these kind of religious nuts believe that. And if I'm offending anyone, too bad. Grow up and read a little science. But the point is that what happened is that we realized that the really heart of it was a macroeconomic system that we were challenging through disclosure, that was keeping the secret, because if this information is known, we will not need oil, gas, coal, nuclear power, centralized utilities, internal combustion engines, jet engines, rockets. All of it's obsolete and has been obsolete for at least 50 years. So this is the largest macroeconomic and technological revolution and transformation in human history. And the stakeholders, the people who own these multi-trillion-dollar aspects of the economy, don't want it out. So the president and the CIA director and people I've met with on the Senate Intelligence Committee and Foreign Relations Committee of the Senate, the UN Secretary General, these are people who are just brushed aside. And most average people can't imagine that you could be the president of the United States or the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff as an admiral that I briefed. And they would be completely blocked from these above top secret super compartmentalized programs, but that is really how the world works and or doesn't work. And I tell people that this is so dysfunctional. And my mom's family is an interesting family. My mom's older brother was the guy who was the senior project engineer that designed the lunar module that put Neil Armstrong on the moon. And her ancestors way back were some of the original founders of the United States, and we were the original POWs with the British. I always joke with my British friends. But the point is that there has been a complete subversion of the rule of law and the Constitution by these super secret entities that have basically done what Eisenhower warned us they were doing, and that is when he said, beware the military-industrial complex, because it's going to get out of control and it's going to completely subvert our way of life and our freedoms and our democracy. And this is what Eisenhower said as he was leaving office in January of 1961 and just before Jack Kennedy took office. So I think that what people have to understand is that the whole last half of the 20th century, if not before, has been hijacked by a cabal of folks who have taken this issue and that it is run and managed in a very illegal, unconstitutional, I call it the world's largest organized crime syndicate, or mafia. And it's a tragedy, because what's being withheld from the planet is not only the fact that we're not alone and that we should be moving out into space as a peaceful, interstellar people, but also that the means for fixing climate change and global warming and world poverty have been completely withheld from the people. Imagine if every village in Africa could have a little device that would be the size of your heat pump that would put out enough power to run that village with free electricity for refrigeration, electrification, pumping water, sanitation. And once you put that thing in, they would have it. So this is the sort of technology that we know exists. We have people who've worked on them, and not all of it came from studying ET spacecraft. A lot of these things were beginning to be discovered 100 years ago by people like Nikola Tesla and Maxwell and Faraday and others. The problem is that the same cabal of folks who suppress that information then want to also suppress the UFO and ET information, because once they discovered how elegant the physics is, that is behind these UFOs and how they operate, they said, boy, we do not want this out, because whether it's the 40s or today, or whether it's 1908, these very large industrialized powers don't want that to happen. And people have to remember that today there are 200 or 300 families and corporations that have over half of the net worth of the world in their control. So there's 7 billion people, but these 200 or 300 people and individuals, and so we're basically all slaves on a plantation, as it were. And these people like being the slave masters. In fact, I call them. I have an acronym for them that I call them MOTUs, Masters of the Universe. And these MOTUs are very addicted to this level of power and control. And this subject coming out is something that they have not wanted to have happen.
Well, yes, and obviously they're doing everything possible to stop it. personal experiences with extraterrestrials and the unfolding of cosmic awareness since his childhood. At an early age, he had a UFO sighting, and at 17, he experienced an amazing near-death experience and went on to unravel the secret cabal that is currently running most of the projects on the world, including the illegal transnational energy and UFO-related projects. On May 9th, 2001, as director of the Disclosure Project, Dr. Greer presided over...
You are tuned in to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. Join us now on another exciting metaphysical journey. Relax, tune in, drop out, and take a seat by the fire as we explore new realms and possibilities. This is Magenta Pixie. You can find me at magentapixie.weebly.com. But now, here is Zany Mystic and guest. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. Today, my guest is Dr. Stephen Greer. Dr. Greer is the founder and director of the Disclosure Project. In addition to heading the Disclosure Project, he has also been supervising a worldwide search for alternative energy sources, such as zero-point devices, with the plan to identify and develop systems which will eliminate the need for fossil fuels. Dr. Greer released his third book in 2006, Hidden Truth, Forbidden Knowledge, in which he relates his own... Stephen, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Glad to be here.
Good. I'm glad to have you. I've been following your work for a long time. I read your book about 5 years ago, and I'll have to tell you it was one of the most shocking and eye-opening books that I've read to date. And I highly recommend it to everybody because it's really vital information to find out about.
Well, thank you.
You're doing a lot of really incredible work on the planet, and on many levels, the Disclosure Project press conference from the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Over 20 military, government, intelligence, and corporate witnesses presented compelling testimony regarding the existence of extraterrestrial life forms visiting the planet and the reverse engineering of the energy and propulsion systems of these craft. So let's explore what's transpired since the press conference and where Disclosure stands today by welcoming Dr. Greer to the show now. Hi,